The Backdoor GAA Podcast for 2023 is now brought to you by Steede Motor Group. For your personalised vehicle shopping experience, visit steedemotorgroup.ie. We are now delighted to announce our second sponsor of the podcast. Harper Finlay are a professional service recruitment company operating nationwide and are dedicated to helping people find their dream job.
So delighted now to be joined by two former Galway footballers in Gary O'Donnell and Johnny Duane to look back on Galway's victory over Roscommon in the Connacht semi-final over the weekend. Galway winning out on a final scoreline of 113 to 1-9, and they now face Sligo in the Connacht final Sunday week in Castlebar at 1:45. A huge game to look forward to. Lads, just looking at the Roscommon game as a whole over the weekend, Gary, coming to you first, do you think players and management will kind of look back on that game as a mixed performance?
I don't know. I think they'd be quite pleased with it, to be honest. Up to now, I was probably with the impression that they had a kind of a mixed bag in the league, albeit got to a league final. They'd have been quite happy with that. But I thought the weekend now, considering the opposition they're playing against, after them coming off the Mayo, or Roscommon beating Mayo, and going down to the Hyde with a big crowd championship game, I thought they managed the game really well. Just didn't give Roscommon any chance to sucker punch them on the counter attack or create any goal chances, particularly earlier on anyway. And just when the game opened up in the second half, then they had all the answers for whatever was thrown at them. So I'd say they'd be quietly surprised anyway with the performance overall, yeah.
Just to carry on the start of the second half, Roscommon obviously get 1-1, 1-2 really quickly. Would that be a concern, or is that just really Connacht Championship, a game taken on a life of its own?
Yeah, that's something they'll definitely be looking at this week. You can imagine how you always felt Roscommon were going to come out with a bit of a bite in the second half, considering they were quite poor in the first half, although they weren't let play, in fairness. But I remember looking at the clock. I think that once they got the goal, I think that put them a point up. I remember looking at my watch, and it was only 41 minutes gone. Like, it was 6 minutes. It was a quick turnaround. And in fairness, that whatever about Galway, even the last 18 months, they're quite difficult to break down or score goals against, something like that. So that'll be definitely something they're looking at. I feel Roscommon went a bit more direct, to be honest. They kind of hit more long ball in. The goal was, in fairness, was well created, like good driving ball to into Smith and a good hand pass inside and a good finish. So yeah, that'll be something I'd say they're definitely going to be looking at during the week. But like I was saying, in saying that as well too, they reacted to it very well and kind of got a stranglehold in the game again as well too, and saw it through comfortably enough in the end.
What's your overall impressions, Johnny, of the performance of the weekend?
Yeah, like Gary said, I think they'll be happy. They controlled the game. Apart from that, I'll say 10 minutes in the second half, they had complete control of the game. I think they will be happy. It's hard to go down to Hyde Park in any given day, so I think they will be pleased. A couple of areas of concern, but overall they'll be delighted to get to another Connacht final. Obviously that 10-minute spell in the second half, the Roscommon crowd really got behind them, but I thought their response to that was brilliant. They just calmed things down again, took control of the game and played it on their terms. So yeah, they'll be delighted. They'll be delighted to another Connacht final, so it's nothing to be sniffed at.
With that, particularly in the first half, Johnny, Roscommon, the way they set up, there's plenty of numbers behind the ball, and it's probably something Galway are going to face a lot of times later on into the summer. But the controlled way Galway, with that system, the way they set up, but the way Galway controlled it, spread it out to the wings and picked a lot of the right passes, just did a lot of the right things coming up against a structure like that.
Yeah, their patience was very good. One or two pot shots, but that's to be expected. But it's not pretty to look at as a supporter. You're hoping for something amazing, but in this day and age, that's not really happening. But I think a pivotal point to that is Ian Burke at full forward. Just gives them so much more options in terms of that pop pass over all them Roscommon players, and then it opened things up again. So yeah, they worked it very well. Got some great scores. But I think, opening that defence. I think Ian Burke is pivotal there, and he was great the last day, especially in the first half.
Just with Ian Burke, he's been getting a lot of plaudits this week. Gary, just bringing it back over to you with Ian Burke. His assists the last day really seemed to add another dimension to this Galway forward unit, and it's probably something that doesn't come as a surprise to you. But even off the ball, what does Ian Burke bring to the table?
Just his movement, really. He, like, anytime you find any ball, really, generally that Ian wins, he's winning it within about 20-30 yards max from the goal. Like, so he's very disciplined in terms of he always stays close to goal, whereas other forwards might drift further out the field and so on. So, like, they started with Damian, Shane and Ian inside there the last day, and they're very, very different, the three of them. But Ian kind of like is nearly the joker in the pack, if you want to call it, in that he's just slightly different to the other two, in that he'll bring other players into the game that bit more, and you just know what you're going to get. A brilliant ball winner inside. Now I'm saying that as well too, like Rob Finnerty was in there last year, and he had a brilliant season in there last year, injury earlier on in the league and so on, but he did nothing wrong as well too. I felt as well too. He was scoring last year. That's probably the one thing about Ian, that he doesn't score as much maybe as a lot of inside forwards, but he's involved in so many other scores in terms of creating chances and the final pass and in assisting other guys as well too. So he's very selfless, and the likes of Peter Cook and Johnny Heaney and Matty Tierney will come from the half forward line, and then the deeper runners from the half back line. He's ideal to play off, because he'll always pop balls out to the runners if they're being made. And that's something maybe that when they played Roscommon in the first game in the second round in the league this year, when they were caught, they lacked that bit of penetration, a bit of running off the shoulder. And not that Ian's the person who solved it all, but when you have a guy inside who's going to lay it off or pop it, or when you make the run, it definitely encourages lads to do that more often. But he had a very good game that after.
Is his strongest point, Johnny, bringing other players into the game?
Yeah, he can be a bit too selfless at times. But as Gary said there, he dreamed to play with, if you we'll say, a half back, half forward running onto the ball, you're going to get it. But yeah, at times, he probably should take more scores himself. But that's just the type of player he is. So yeah, like against the pack defence, he's ideal. His movement is unreal. So yeah, no, I thought he was good the last day.
Just with that, Johnny, a lot of people are talking about him as probably one of the most selfless forwards in the country at the minute. Would you agree with that?
Possibly, yeah. Speaking of Stevens, it's only his first year back in a couple of years, so I wouldn't be going too far. But yeah, he is very selfless. Yeah, that's what he bases his game around. So yeah, but as Gary said, he probably could do a bit more scoring, but it doesn't really matter who scores, I suppose, as long as the team are scoring. But yeah, definitely that's one of his main attributes. Yeah.
With that as well, Gary, you're just talking about Rob Finnerty. He's been a mainstay there now, but it's a good headache now for the management, you'd imagine, even because if you look back to last year in that All-Ireland final will be referenced when people do talk about Galway. It just adds another dimension to, especially inside for Galway.
Yeah, it was fairly well documented based on last year that they probably lacked a bit of depth off the bench at times. And last year, I suppose the first 15 was set in stone for most of the year, and they were fortunate enough to not have any main injuries, particularly in the championship anyway. They've had a few in the league this year, but hopefully that's them out of the way. Even looking at the bench the last day, they had great options to come off it. And they can hold that or keep lads fit and firing late into the summer. That's going to be a major improvement for them going late into the summer. So just like in terms of Ian, you've been on about selfless forwards and so on and so forth. It's rare enough you get an inside forward who's like that. So he's probably different to other inside forwards. You look at the Kerry inside line or Dublin inside line or any of the other bigger teams. Most of them are out now shooters and scorers, and that's normal enough and so on. But Ian is just that slightly bit different in that he just brings everyone else into the game and involves so many others, and you just know what you're going to get off him. Ball winner, he's going to always be out in front, and very, very difficult to tie down. So very important to them. All right, going into the summer if he can keep him fit.
Gary, do you think with what you've seen with Ian Burke, obviously it's still so early in the year, but It was nearly a similar role in kind of 2017 when you did go all that way to the semi-final against Dublin. That was some of the stuff you were almost seeing Ian Burke do that year.
Yeah, same as and I suppose there was a lot expected them coming back into himself and Peter, who were drafted back in. There was a lot of expectation from them, particularly from the outside of the general public anyway. And we didn't see much of Ian in the league because he was injured, obviously, but by all accounts, he was going really, really well in training since the league final, so was picked on form there, obviously. But again, it's only one performance. It's only against Roscommon. Ian will know that himself. The managers will know that themselves. There'll be bigger fish to fry as the season goes on. More important games. They'll be coming thick and fast. So the likes of Rob, the likes of other players that were on the bench the last day, they're all going to be needed. No doubt about it. I'm sure they'll do very well to go through the summer again like they did last year without picking up niggles and knocks or lads being not fit and available, because the games do come thick and fast with this new format. So lads just need to buy their time, and the panel just needs to be ready to go when called upon.
Just with that as well, before we do get into look at a bit of the game, Johnny, John Maher at the weekend did a terrific man-marking job on Enda Smith. Enda Smith's his involvement in that game was really minimised by Maher, besides where he caught the goal excellently to set up Kieran Murtagh. But John Maher before this year hadn't played for Galway since 2020, where both he would have been involved in that game against Mayo in Tuam Stadium. Has his development and rise this quickly come as a surprise to you?
Yeah, by all accounts, he had a great club championship last year, but I was very impressed with him. Even the cameras probably wouldn't pick up half the stuff he done. He literally stuck to Enda Smith all day long. That was his job. Executed his job, and scored 2 great points. So yeah, I think for a first time out in championship, he'll be very happy. But yeah, his work rate was very, very good. And as I said, he got up the other end and scored 2 points. So, and as Gary was saying there, that's another find between himself, Ian Burke, Johnny McGrath. The depth in the squad is coming along nicely. So yeah, it's great heading into the summer. But it's early. There's a lot of games yet, but definitely for John Maher himself, he'll be very pleased. He did very, very well. Yeah.
Gary, just when John Maher did come in 2020 to now, have you seen a significant difference straight away?
Well, look, the game he came into in 2020 wasn't the ideal game to play, and it probably to maybe set him back a bit. I don't know, based around timer, but like Johnny said there, he had a very good club championship last year, as did 3 or 4 of the Salthill lads that are in there at the moment. He again, he's bided his time a small, but he's been kind of came under the radar. He's been in the panel, but not many people have kind of taken note of him until particularly the Kerry game, the last National League game, the last round anyway, where I thought he was excellent. He kicked 2 points in that game as well. Kicked points in the league. I thought he was their best player in the league final, possibly as well. And he was excellent again. That's 5 points in 3 games, and that's probably something he wasn't overly noted for, which was his kicking or scoring ability. No disrespect to him, he was a brilliant runner, brilliant fetcher, great athlete, box to box midfielder. But kicking scores and getting forward wasn't generally what he was noted for. So he certainly added that on to his game, and yeah, I'd say he's been Galway's best player the last 3 games.
You think he's been up there with the most consistent?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like as I said to you, most people have been looking at the likes of Peter and Ian coming back in, and maybe someone else slotting into midfield. And John just come in and he's just grabbed his chance when he's been given it. And no more than that, like you said, he's been in the panel before, maybe matured a small bit, had a good league club campaign under him last year. I'd add Tomo to that as well. Tomo Culhannon, I thought had a great club campaign last year. Probably got injured at the wrong time at the start of the National League, where he probably would have got a lot of those games because there was a position open there at corner forward for him. So that was unfortunate for him. But again, he'd probably be you can imagine he'll see plenty of minutes as the summer goes on if he can keep fit and train well as well.
And Johnny, earlier on, just with that first half, we were talking about the control Galway brought in attack in particular. But you have to say as well, from a defensive perspective, they're really impressive, really hard to break down, held Roscommon to no scores from play, Kieran Murtagh with his 3 frees in the first half. Like that's something that the management will have to take away from that and be really pleased.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's been a trademark of them in the last couple of years is their defensive setup. But yeah, the last day they were really solid. Really solid, as you said. No scores in play. 3 points in Hyde Park. Roscommon probably had a bit of a win there, so yeah, I know they'll be very pleased. But they know what they're at in that system. They know where to be, where to go. There's a lot of clarity there by the looks of it. So yeah, it's a well-oiled machine at this stage. But yeah, no, they'll be very happy with it.
The hospital thing as well, Johnny. Dylan Moran was named at 9. He didn't play midfield. It was the first kind of team we went and seen someone man-mark Sean Kelly go as full back, and it's probably something we're going to see more of, I suspect, as the summer goes on.
Yeah. Look, Sean, as we know, Sean Kelly he's named that full back, but he can end up anywhere. And his threat going forward is unreal. So, yeah, look, people could put markers on him. I think he'll be happy with that. If you're putting a man marker on Galway's full back, that takes away a scoring forward. So look, whatever teams do, but going forward for Galway, he is a massive threat. Such a strong runner, and he brings such pace to the attack. So especially on a counter attack when Galway defence do turn over the ball, he's the man that's always going forward. So yeah, look, he's pivotal to Galway.
Gary, with that as well, in the opening half, the Damo's goal chance obviously, and another goal chance as well. Would that just be an area where, when you see Roscommon come back into that game straight after half time, that you could even see the analysis at half time between Lee Keegan and Sean Kavanagh? They were saying like that Galway should have get this game out of sight. Would that be a bit of a disappointment for Port Joyce and his management that it wasn't put to bed earlier?
I don't think it'll be a disappointment for them, but you, like I said, no more than the 6 or 7 minutes after half time, it'll be something they'll be looking at, the goal chance they create and that they didn't convert them. But like, you're never going to be, particularly this Roscommon side, like they're a quality side, a lot of good footballers, they had a brilliant league campaign behind them. Like, you're never going to be putting a game to bed at half time down there in a championship game anyway. So yeah, in hindsight, you could say could have tagged on another 1-2, 1-3 to be 7-8 points up. But Roscommon could say something similar. They weren't playing well. They missed a free or two and butchered a few chances up front and so on. So yeah, you can nitpick at a few bits like that. But again, if they're doing their video this week, they're definitely looking at the goal chances they should have converted, and then they'll be looking at that 6 or 7 minutes after half time, how they let them back into the game. And just on their defensive setup, building on from last year, once you've kind of got a routine and a setup like that, it's very, very hard to break it down. Like Derry are probably doing something similar as well too. But the only thing with Galway is it suits Galway's setup in that they've 5 or 6 forwards up top that if you do break, they're a serious threat once it opens up. Like, you even saw that goal chance where Roscommon misplaced the pass and it was just given to Damian and it was just straight on. There's a goal from 60 yards out. Like, not many teams can hold that threat where they drop players deep and can leave a Damian or a Shane or maybe an Ian or whoever else up top and kick long ball into them. So suits the system down to the ground. And just in terms of breaking it down, I thought, like, if teams are going to break it down, which it's going to be quite difficult for, Roscommon were brave enough, I thought, that they went that bit more direct with a bit more long kicking, and you saw how the goal was created as well too. So no, they're going well so far, and as I said to you, later on the summer, the bigger games to play against, they'll have to fine tune it a small bit more, so they'll be working on that, I'm sure.
Gary, just from a defensive perspective there, when you talk about Galway setup, have you seen them evolve last year? Because obviously last year everyone was aware Dylan McHugh and Kieran Malloy kind of sat back as this double sweeper system. Have you seen Galway evolve more from that defensive system this year now?
Not a huge difference, only that, like, when you're playing a system like that, the longer you play into it, the more familiar players get with it, and you can just add a few strings to it then as well. And that, I would imagine the fact that they were so defensively sound last year, Paul could be very much forward orientated too, that they want to be tagging on a bit more scores. So even the last year, as well as now as they played, 113 is a modest enough scoring for the team that Galway have, if you ask me. and Damian got 1-4 of that, like, from play. So that'll be one thing I'd say they'll want to harness a bit more, and that if you're going to be playing a Kerry or even a Dublin or Mayo further down the line, that you're going to need 15, 16, 17 scores at least, with a goal or two probably in that to beat them. And they'll be well aware of that. Like, so as good knowledge your defensive system is, you probably want to keep yourself goalless against those teams, and if you're keeping them to 13, 14 points, you're doing well. So the forward aspect, or the counter-attacking and scoring the other end, will be probably something they're looking to drive on a bit more.
Do you think that's something they'll be zoning in on now, Johnny?
Yeah. Like as Gary said there, when it comes, it's okay in the first round of the Connacht Championship, but when it comes to Croke Park, when it comes to your Kerrys, your Dublins, they're the games you need to be scoring, as Gary said there, up around 16, 17 scores. But look, they will be happy. It's the first run out in the championship. Roscommon are never easy beat in Hyde Park, and I thought some of the scoring was very good. But down the line they're going to need to improve on that. But look, we could be nitpicking it here. But overall, I think from a defensive point of view, for 60 minutes, very, very solid. And from forwards point of view, they'll be happy enough. Some of their main players didn't play too well, then other players stood up. So that's probably they'll be happy with that too.
With that as well, Johnny, we were just kind of talking about earlier on that 5 minutes after half time where Roscommon do come out and they kick 1-3 within a quick period from the 35th to the 40th minute. But they'll have to be pleased as well with the way Galway respond from that. Like, for a situation to be put in that backs against the wall away from home and to reply like that is definitely a pleasing aspect.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think I think out of the whole game, that 5 minutes after Roscommon's purple patch will probably be the most pleasing. They just got the ball, kept on to the ball. I think it was like 2 minutes they held on to the ball over and back, just absolutely killed Roscommon's momentum. Worked to score, and then I think it was Matty Tierney that got the score that got them back level. And then they can set up for a kick out and push on. But that, I think overall that'll be very pleasing. Because from being there, the Roscommon crowd really got behind them. There was a massive atmosphere there for 10 minutes, but then Galway just keep the ball. A lot of experience. You can hear Keane O'Neill on the sideline roar and control the game, and they did that very well, very, very well. So I think they'll be very, very pleased with that, especially after when a team gets momentum, it's hard to stop them, especially with the crowd behind them and everything. But I think Galway did excellently there.
And Gary, Matthew Tierney on the 48th minute with his mark, and then after that on the 50th minute to equalise on both occasions, that was a real significant moment. Maybe Matthew Tierney was kind of out of the game, but to step up with those 2 points, they were crucial moments of the game. Yeah,
and there were two fine scores as well too. And you'd be on about a player that's kind of stepped up this year. He's had a brilliant campaign up to now. He probably was a bit quiet up to that stage in the game, but he actually came to my attention on one of the plays where he tracked a player right back down the pitch, was working his socks off, and then about 5 minutes later he kicked those 2 points. But even on that point of falling behind, as a supporter at the game, probably the best compliment I could play this group at the moment is you never felt that that they were going to lose the game. That's basically the way I looked at it. Even when they went to point down and the place was rocking and the momentum was with Roscommon, it was early in the second half, granted, right, but you just felt that even that 2 or 3 minutes that they held onto the ball, they're not going to lose this. You just never felt the game was going away from them, and that's been the case throughout the league campaign this year. When it looked like games are gone away from them or momentum's gone away from them, they found a way to wrestle it back and see out a game, get crucial scores. So they're showing great maturity and leadership that way, but you can see they've done a lot of work on it as well. Usual thing would be keeping the ball and minding the ball. As Johnny said there, I could hear that message too from Keane O'Neill of control the game now seems to be the word of, again, it mightn't be the prettiest to look at, but you got to play the opposition. And in Roscommon's case, they do drop a lot of players back and try and hit you on the counter attack. So they were very obviously focusing on not giving them any oxygen and kicking ball away and so on. And I thought they did that very well, yeah.
Conor Daly for Roscommon, Johnny, he definitely have regrets when you look at the opportunity that did present himself in the second half.
Yeah, but I think overall, they look back on the video. I think Galway were in complete control of the whole game. If you look at it as a whole, to score 3 points in a half of football is pretty disappointing from their view. They were very flat in the first half. Obviously after that Mayo game, you were expecting a bounce off them, but they didn't. They looked sluggish. They looked poor in attack. Apart from them 3 frees. Galway looked so comfortable. So on overall, they look back in the video and they'll realise, they weren't up to scratch. And Galway were in complete control of the game. Obviously, they would have liked to push on after that 10-minute spell. If they kept that momentum going, we'd never know what could happen. But as Gary was saying, from being there, looking at Galway, they had this sense of calm about them. And you never kind of felt, even though the crowd were going mad and they were a point up, I think it wasn't even 10 minutes into the second half, and you're thinking to yourself, you've 20 odd minutes to go here. I can't see Galway being bet, but yeah, they did well. I think overall, Roscommon will be disappointed in themselves, but overall, I think Galway definitely deserved it.
Particularly the composure there as well, Johnny. We were just talking about Matthew Cheney level and that, but then you have John Maher, Damian Comer, and Shane Walsh make it 1-7 to 1-12 in 55 minutes. Roscommon do get it back to 1-9 to 1-12, but even late on, the quick 1-2s by Damo and Rob for the last score of the game as well. Just it was excellent, really, because you could have expected Rob to take it on himself, but to spot Damo then for the last score of the game as well.
Yeah, exactly, and I think they obviously have a lot of work done on getting the ball to the best man, the best position. So that's working well for them, and you can see they're getting scores from it. So even when they were down, you don't see many pot shots. The odd one now and again, but they're working their scores. They're working their scores very well. So yeah, especially when they went 3 up, they were never going to lose that game.
Much debate around the man of the match after the game. Gary, even seen Lee Keegan on Twitter after the game to explain the man of the match case. But I presume you're like a lot of Galway supporters, probably wondering how Damian Comer didn't get the man of the match on Sunday.
Yeah, look, it was a straightforward decision, really, as any game you've seen before, really. Apart from he had all the big moments in the play, particularly when Galway were struggling for a small bit of scoring opportunities in the first half. He was delivering them. Even the block near the end of the game was crucial, not crucial, but just showed the evidence of what he was bringing to the table on the day. I actually wasn't aware of who was awarded until I was going home. The phone was kind of pinging a small bit, and there was kind of a bit of pandemonium about this award, man of the match. But yeah, in fairness, Kieran Murton now, he was really good and has always been a really good forward for Roscommon over the years. Has caused us trouble numerous times. Very good kicker of the ball, brilliant shooter, and has been for a number of years. So he did have a good game, but definitely hands down Damian was man of the match. I think he scored 1-4 from play, and apart from all that, his contributions in the game were so positive as well. It was a straightforward decision for me, yeah.
With Damian Comer, Gary, there was obviously concerns when Galway did meet Roscommon with that injury. But even you can see with 3 weeks there now, he seems to look refreshed. But a Damian Comer in this form, what can it do for Galway?
Oh, he's vital, yeah. Thing is with Damian too, if he does pick up a knock or gets injured, I know when the news came back, it was fairly positive about his injury after the first time they played Roscommon this year. And there was going to be a short layoff, and he was due back at the end of the league. He was always going to need those 2 or 3 extra weeks. He's a type of player, he's so explosive and strong that he just needs minutes and training. So when he does come back, you can expect a bit of rustiness. You saw that in the league final. And obviously got 3 weeks under his belt then in the lead up to this game, and you could see the difference. He was so much sharper, fitter, hungrier as well. So brilliant performance overall. And probably the observation, I kind of read something during the week about getting himself and Shane to perform in the same game will probably be the big thing, because when one performs, the other seems to be a bit more quiet, and vice versa. So if you think of the All-Ireland final last year, Shane shot the lights out and Damian was kind of well held by Foley, and same in the semi-final where Shane was well quietened and Damian was the star of the show. So if we just get the two of them firing on the one day, I think we could shoot the lights out, and I don't think any backline unit would take them, because even when we used to play Mayo over the years, we used to always look at the matchups, and when Keegan was there and when Mullen was there, the two of them, not that they were able to take them, but there were two good matchups for them, and then you could free up Durkin and so on. Whereas I look at the Mayo backline now, and they have Durkin to do one of them, and even in that he'd struggle. But I don't think they've anyone else to mark one or the other. And then you have all the other forwards that are with it too, who are contributing equally as well. Matty, Peter, Johnny, Ian, or Rob, or whoever else. So there's so much lads to tie down that if we could get a few of them clicking on the one day, I don't think any backline would manage them.
That is the thing, Johnny, as well. Like, it's a great point by Gary to get those two, like Damian and Shane, firing on the one day.
Yeah, it'd be exciting to watch. Because as Gary was saying there, it's kind of one is playing well, one's not playing so well. But if they did click, I don't think any team, any defensive system in the country will stop them. They're phenomenal players, a bit different. Damian's just so powerful, so direct, and then Shaney has it all. So I think, look, if the both of them clicked on any given day, and if you got them the open spaces of Croke Park and you got them to click, it'd be very exciting and a real positive for Galway. I don't think anyone will disagree in saying that there's no one in the country to stop them. Them two players alone. I don't mean Galway, but look, if that worked, happy days. Yeah.
Just as well, lads, on the goalkeeper situation, there's a lot of debate around it, with different supporters. Johnny, Bernard Power played at the weekend. Conor Gleeson played the majority of the league. Do you see Porrick now sticking with Bernard Power?
It's hard to know. I thought I was at the league game in Pearse Stadium against Kerry. I thought Bernie did very, very well. I was very impressed. So then I was thinking, he's going to be in for the league final, but then it switched back to Conor. So it's hard to know. But going forward for Galway, I think they need to just, they need to stick with one if they can. I know they might be going on form and training or whatever, but even for lads out the field, the two lads probably have different kickouts, different trajectory on their kicks. So for midfielders, half forwards, it's better if they pick one and go with it. But to be honest, in Pearse Stadium against Kerry, I was very impressed with Bernie. I thought he did okay the last day as well. Nothing wrong. One short kick out went astray, but I thought he did well. And as I said, very impressed in the Kerry game with Bernie. So it's hard to know. Hopefully, from Galway's point of view, they don't keep chopping and changing, because it'd be nice to get a settled keeper out of all positions, I suppose.
That's the thing now, Gary. If they were to switch it back, which you'd expect they wouldn't, because it will create this maybe a bit of confusion, then you could say.
Yeah, and like that, I've a few times I've thought they've settled on one, they've chopped for the next one. So you'd imagine they'd probably stick with Bernie. I don't know, like that before they've changed. Even for confidence-wise, be it Conor or Bernie, whoever it is, just to give them a run of games in the position to back them. But they're obviously a bit unsure, maybe. They're going off games they're seeing. They're going off maybe training matches as well, and form in training. So, they're probably seen a lot more than what we're seeing as well. So it's obviously a tight call. I think Porrick said last week it was a very straightforward one for himself. But I thought another Galway goalie in Conor Carroll for Roscommon the last had a great game, particularly the first half. I was kind of on his side, and some of the kickouts he picked were I didn't see them myself. He picked out a couple where Galway pressed up, and he was picking lads out 40 yards in the middle of the pitch, loop kick passes. Very, very well done. I was very impressed with him, and have been throughout the league as well. So he might change back again eventually down the line, but You never know. But looking at the two lads at the moment are vying for the position, and it's been a good battle up to now, and may the best man win from there on in. Because as I said to you, a bit of familiarity with backs and kickouts and so on would be the best thing, but who knows after that.
I think there as well, even from the keeper themselves, if you're thrown in, say for example, Connor's thrown in the Connacht final, it's pressure on him too, and it's not. I don't think it's good personally if you're putting that pressure on and he's saying, look, I'm in for a Connacht final, I have to perform now. There was a lot of pressure on Bernie the last day. He's in, he's getting his chance. Whereas if you're going with one lad, just go with him. I think that's the way to go forward.
So would you stick with Bernie now, Johnny?
Personally, I would. Yeah, I'd stick with Bernie. I think he did well. He got his chance and he took it. So yeah, I wouldn't go chopping and changing.
You stick with him as well, Gary?
Yeah, I probably would at this stage as well. I think you're at the stage of the summer too where, such an important position, goalie as well. And from what I've seen them in the couple of games, which he's the right at kickouts, even though he did make one or two mistakes in the second half of last day, he know that himself. But overall, I thought his variety of his kickouts and what he was doing and what he can bring to the game is probably suitable to the way Galway wants to play as well. So I probably would stick with Bernie. Yeah.
It's the Connacht final now, Johnny, against Sligo. Galway obviously raging hot favourites, given where maybe both teams are at. Sligo Division 4 champions, and they definitely are rising. You can see with the school success they've had, the under-20 success, the Connacht. But it's a big carrot now for a lot of these Galway players that haven't really won back-to-back Connacht titles, and that's probably a motivation for this group now.
Yeah, definitely. Look, a Connacht medal is nothing to be sniffed at. I think they'll be all guns blazing for this game. I think Galway have come to a stage is they don't care who they're playing. They just want to win and improve all the time. So I think I can't see anything but a Galway win. I watched the Sligo game against New York. No contest there whatsoever. So and they played London before that, so they might go into this Connacht final a bit undercooked. They've played London and New York. If it was in Markievicz Park, you might give them some chance. I think it's on in the Kale. So look, I think Galway will win. But they won't be taking anything for granted either. They won't be holding back. It's a Connacht title at the end of the day. Some people outside of a setup might be saying it's not too important, but I guarantee you, to the lads in there, it's very important. So I think Galway should definitely have enough.
Particularly for when you look at the leaders, Gary, and that yourself and Johnny would have been involved with, didn't really get the chance to ultimately do back-to-back Connacht titles. Do you think that would be a motivation for the likes of Paul Connor now, Damian, Shane, when they're looking at this?
Oh, for sure, yeah, definitely. Just thinking there, I don't think Galway have done a back-to-back Connacht since about 2002, maybe I'm wrong, which is 20 odd years. So you can be sure Paul will have that stat thrown out to them as well, probably since the last time he played actually. So definitely it's just another kind of target for them to reach or to take off along the way as well. As good and all as Sligo have gone, they've had a great year up to date. And, I think this game is kind of a free hit for them in many ways, and that they've reached the All-Ireland series now as number 2 seeds, as being provincial finalists. So it's been a great success for them to promotion to Division 4 as Division 4 champions, under-20 Connacht champions, senior Connacht finalists. Provided they don't get an absolute hockey, and it'll be fine. I think Galway will win relatively comfortably. Putting up maybe about 15 minutes to go, maybe 7, 8, 9 points, something like that. But that's just the stages the two teams are at the moment. Like Sligo are playing Division 4 football, Galway are playing Division 1. But in fairness, it's great to see Sligo making so much progression, and that obviously underage, they're doing good work. They're very competitive minor as well, under-20 back-to-back champions. And then in schools as well too, the Summerhill, I think, were senior college champions this year in Connacht, and they're under 15 teamer in the Connacht final as well against Morris as well too. So a lot of good work being done down there, and it's great to see Connacht football is so strong that you've three Division 1 teams at the top this year, or Connacht teams at the top of Division 1 this year, and then you have Sligo, who are starting to make a good comeback as well. So it's great to see.
I presume the message to be driven home now in the Galway camp, Johnny, is bury Sligo as quickly as possible, because they're probably, Sligo are going to come into this game to try and contain Galway, and that'll ultimately be their aim, to still be in the game at half time.
Yeah. Like, look, Roscommon tried to contain Galway too, and it just didn't work. I think just the golfing class, from even preparation wise, Galway's have been playing, the top teams in Ireland, whereas Sligo just haven't had them competitive games. I think even if they did contain Galway for the first 10-15 minutes, you saw the last day in Hyde Park, Galway know what they're at. I can't see Galway being too worried if Sligo put 15 men behind the ball, which more than likely they will do. But Galway have worked on this. They've played Derry last year, Armagh. They know how to break down a packed defence, so I don't think they'll have any issues against Sligo. And that's no disrespect to Sligo, I just think that's where they're at. And especially their preparation going into the game, they are Division 4. But yeah, I think all the golfing class is just going to be too much. Hopefully I'm right and I don't beat my words, but I can't see any other win.
Just at the minute, Gary, in the relation to the All-Ireland conversation, it seems at the minute that Galway are probably maybe third favourites to win the All-Ireland. Dublin and Kerry seem to be up there as number 1 and 2. Is that where you see Galway at the minute?
See, look at it. It is only after round 1 as well too. I probably would see Galway maybe a bit even higher, to be honest, without putting them up too high. You have to go on what you've seen so far, and that you're probably basing a lot of Kerry off last year, what they did last year, because they were quite poor actually in the league this year. Showed a lot of weakness, but I know they were trying things, and they're probably 3 or 4 weeks behind everyone with training and so on, with holidays and all that. I probably would have wrote Dublin off early on in the year for a lot of reasons, that I felt they were still relying on a lot of the players of the last 10 years. But since they've kind of got everyone fit again, McCaffrey being back, Conor Callan back, and then kind of ghosting through Division 2 like Galway did last year, where there's not a huge amount of spotlight on them, and they're going about their business quietly and gathering momentum, and then all of a sudden, they're taking a big scalp later on this summer. That's kind of where Galway were at last year. So Dublin are kind of like that, and obviously they're the big name in GAA in terms of the followings they have and support and all that. So you probably say something along the lines of Dublin, Kerry, Galway, maybe even Mayo, in no particular order. And then I think even in time myself and Johnny were playing, you'd always have at least 1 or 2 very strong Ulster teams, and maybe 1 or 2 other ones as well. Whereas there's no real standout Ulster team now at the moment. Like, you have Tyrone, you have Armagh, you have Armagh, but ultimately I don't think they're the teams that they were 5-6 years ago. So it's a wide open championship, but I'd say you could probably put it down to maybe those 4 and maybe 1 more at a stretch. And I'd have Galway right up at the top of that, yeah.
Where do you see them in the All-Ireland conversation, Johnny?
Yeah, as Gary said, we're only after finishing the league, and it's the first round of the Connacht Championship. But yeah, look, what they're doing is very impressive. As Gary said, I'd have them right up there too, but I wouldn't be getting overly confident or anything like that. Kerry are always going to be there. Dublin, they're going to walk through Leinster, so there's going to be no spotlight on them until they get to the group stages. In terms of Ulster, you have Derry. You could hit Derry on a good day. They might be hard to break down. Rory Gallagher seems to have done an unbelievable job there with the group of players he has. So, but yeah, look, I definitely have Galway up the top. And as he spoke earlier on, if you could get the likes of Damian Comer to click, that'd bring them an awful long way. But look, there's a long way to go. Yeah, there's a lot of games, more games than we would have ever played, Gary, in the championship. So there's a long way to go, but they're going in the right direction, 100%. Yeah, I'd have them definitely up there.
Just to touch, lads, briefly before we do finish up, just on the under-20s last week, just coming up short. Absolute heartbreak, devastation would be the words you'd use, against Sligo last week in Tuam Stadium, where Sligo ultimately win the game with a fist of points in the last play of the game. You'd have to feel for them, really, watching that on, Gary. Like, it was a tremendous game of football, though, you'd have to say, produced by both sides.
It was, yeah. Look, when you're in it as well too, it's gut wrenching, and Donald has a lot of good work done with them, obviously, and has years and years done with Underage with Galway. And when you're in it like that too, you obviously want to succeed and do well. And no more than we mentioned with Sligo a minute ago, it is good to see them progress, but you obviously don't want it to be at the expense of Galway. But like, in the bigger picture, progression wise, be it the minor team or the 20s, I know it's probably no consolation to the lads that lost the last day, but it's all about basically how many of them you can bring through to senior. And we are producing a lot of brilliant, very good footballers over the last few years. And the great thing now at the moment is they've something to aspire to with the senior team that's there, who are going to be competing for All Ireland. It's not only last year or this year, but they're probably going to be there for a few years, really. So, it's a good time for Galway football, whether they're winning kind of championships at minor or 20s. Things are in a good place, so just need to keep producing that and keep on top of it, basically, because there was too long there, basically, where we were probably doing all right underage all the time, but probably a sleeping giant maybe at senior level then for quite a while. But you'd be very disappointed for them the last day, no doubt, but hopefully a few of those can push on, and I know a few of them will be there again next year as well.
Is there anyone jumping out at you, Johnny, from that under-20 side that you could see even, I don't know, will Pora call a few in now or get in there in the next year or two?
Yeah, look, there was the thing is they're quite young still. That used to be under 21. You were 20, 21 going into a senior setup, but these lads are maybe 18, 19. Some of them are there again next year, so it is a massive step up. But I think from the last day they'll learn a lot. I was watching the game. They went, I think it was 5-1 up, and then I think it was like 3 or 4 wides in a row. And I was thinking to myself, this could come back to haunt them at the very end of the game. And then there was 1 or 2 silly turnovers right at the depth. But these players will learn a lot, and as you'll always hear, you'll learn more from defeat. So, as Gary said, if you can get a few of them, it might not be next year. It might take 2 or 3 years for some of these under 20 players to come through to senior, but there's definitely a lot of talent there. It's just a matter as if they stick with it. They are quite young, but Ducky is doing a lot of great work over the last couple of years. So yeah, some of them are very exciting. To be honest with you, I wouldn't have seen much of them before. I've been away, but yeah, very impressed with some of the individual displays. So yeah, hopefully in the next couple of years we'll see some of them playing senior football.
Is there anyone jumping out for you in particular, Gary?
The one thing that jumped out at me was the spread of clubs. There's a lot of different clubs in terms of a lot of West clubs, Litchmore, Headford, your own underage goalie there, Johnny James Egan, who was in the senior setup last year with Porrick. I think he was about third choice. I think he's great potential. Charlie Power from Salt Hill, I think, looks lively as well too. Lads that you wouldn't have seen much even at senior club level. That's the only thing about them. A few Currafin lads there, Bernard Cohn, I think, as well from Currafin as well too. Lads that haven't been exposed to maybe senior club football yet. It just shows you the jump from minor, senior, and then or minor under 20, and then on to senior, even at club level, never mind inter-county. So, even though the few lads might be earmarked to move on, it does take a year or two at the very least. Even the lads that are brought in fairness to Porrick, the players he's brought in, he's given them minutes and got it into them straight away. Like so Johnny McGrath was mentioned there already. He's transitioned very well. He's been a great find later on in the league. But yeah, there's definitely a few of them there, and like I said to you, a great spread of clubs as well. And good potential, but like I said, and Johnny said it already, there huge jump from that to senior. It's just a matter of keeping the cohesion there and making sure lads can be brought into senior setup and brought forward as well.
Yeah, even like there's three lads from our club: James Egan, Jack Fole, and Sam O'Neill. Let's say as Gary was saying there, last year might have been their first year playing senior club, so for them to jump, we'll say, from this year straight into inter-county senior championship next year, it's a big jump, but look, they're definitely going in the right direction. And you can see from them lads coming back to the club, they've learned so much, in the last year or 2 years since they've been in the Galway setup. And as you said, James was in the Galway last year, so that will bring them on, leaps and bounds. So yeah, the main thing is sticking with it. I'm sure Pádraig and the lads will have some sort of development squad for them lads to bridge the gap to get into that senior panel. But yeah, it is a massive jump, but definitely going in the right direction. Yeah.
Season at the minute, lads. Johnny, how are you finding the club league?
I'm finding it very tough because I haven't ran in a year. I didn't think I'd score 3 days after a league game, but that's the way we're at the moment. But I'm actually enjoying it. Yeah, it's great. It's great to be back with the club. This is probably my first year back since retiring, just with the club. I was gone away for the last year, so it's great to be back. Yeah, it's very enjoyable. There's not as much pressure in the video analysis, God. So yeah, it's good. It's good.
Maher making a bad start to the league, Gary.
Doing okay. Yeah, look, it's no more than what we're saying there. It's early days. We 4 games played now, right? We're doing all right, but you want to be looking at that or in that kind of form later on in the year, September, October time, all going well. But yeah, enjoying us so far. And as I said to you, once the temperatures are rising and the evenings are getting a bit longer now too, and the pitches are firming up, like you can kind of enjoy it a bit more. But the format of it, so and with the games coming every second week too, is quite good, and you've kind of structured that when you're going to be playing and when you're not, so you can kind of organise yourself around that. But yeah, it's very enjoyable, in fairness.
Good stuff. Well, that's all today on our podcast. Thanks a million to the lads for coming on.
Thanks, Paul.
The Backdoor GAA Podcast for 2023 is now brought to you by Steede Motor Group. For your personalised vehicle shopping experience, visit steedemotorgroup.ie. We are now delighted to announce our second sponsor of the podcast. Harper Finlay are a professional service recruitment company operating nationwide and are dedicated to helping people find their dream job.